Greetings, my beautiful lovelies. It's Emmy. How are you? It's great to see you and welcome back. Today I'm going to be testing out a vintage gadget to make a Norwegian holiday treat. So this gadget, right, here's the gadget. Look at this. Isn't it beautiful? And on it, embossed, it says Jodel. And it says product of Norway. Can you see that? And look at this. This is the reason why I bought it. Look at that pattern inside. Isn't that beautiful? It's embossed on both sides. And isn't that gorgeous? So I've cleaned it and I've seasoned it. So seasoning cast iron is a process where you lightly oil the cleaned cast iron and then you apply some heat to it, usually about 350 degrees, either on the stove or some people like to place it in the oven for about an hour or so. Take it out, rub any excess oil out and allow it to cool, and now your cast iron has been seasoned. Seasoning does a couple of things. It keeps things from sticking to the pan, but also it keeps moisture away from the cast iron, which likes to rust when exposed to water and air, so the oil also protects it. If you want to see an entire video on how to refurbish cast iron, I'll put a link to a video I made a few years ago. So this beautiful and sturdy gadget is used to make a traditional Norwegian cookie called krumkake, and they are had around Christmas time, and they're thin and crunchy and often flavored with either vanilla or cardamom, sometimes both. Sometimes I've seen a couple recipes with lemon rind as well, but the vanilla and the cardamom were the most prevalent when I found the recipes. The recipe I'm going to be using today comes from Nordic Ware. I'll put a link to the original. Nordic Ware are the makers of the bundt pan, another story altogether. So I live in New England, which is in the northwest portion of the US. And historically, there were a lot of Norwegian immigrants in this area, also in the Midwest. So it makes sense that I was able to find one of these locally. So let's go ahead and make some krumkake. So the first thing we're going to do is prepare our cardamom. Now cardamom, if you're not familiar with it, looks like this. This is the cardamom pod. And inside you'll find these little tiny seeds. See that? That's what we want. That's the cardamom. If you can find whole cardamom pods, I totally recommend picking a few up. They last forever whole in your pantry, and when you grind them fresh, they're just so much more fragrant than the pre-ground stuff. And that's true for ground coriander and black pepper. Anything that you can get whole and then grind fresh is just so much more potent. So I've already kind of shucked a bunch of the cardamom pods already. That was probably about 8 or 10 pods, and that's a bunch of whole cardamom. Now that's too big for our recipe, so we're going to grind it in a spice grinder. I really like this particular spice grinder because you can take the little blade part out, which is so great. The old one I had was an old coffee grinder, and when I used it, I could never clean it out. So it always seemed like it had residual coffee smell or some other kind of fragrant smells. But in this case, I can just dump this in here, and then when I'm done, I can rinse it out and thoroughly dry it so I don't have cross-contamination of flavors. Brilliant, right? So then we just pop this on. It's basically like a mini food processor. And put this on, and whoosh, it's gonna be a little loud. So there it all is, pulverized at the bottom. Oh, it smells so good. It smells slightly mentholated too. A little bit minty, but citrusy, bright, peppery. It's phenomenal. So this recipe is super simple. We're simply making a batter, kind of like a pancake batter. So I've got a stick of butter in here that I've already melted, and I'm going to add 2 eggs. Bloop. And whisk that in. And make sure your butter is a little bit cooled off before you add your eggs so that you don't scramble them up. Look at that beautiful color. And to that, we're going to add our sugar. Adding a little bit at a time because my sugar has some clumps in it, so I want to whisk those out. I like that you don't need any special tools, well, besides the krumkake maker. Apparently the one I have is kind of old-fashioned-y. These days there are electric versions that you can purchase and use, much like a waffle iron, which which makes, I think, adjusting the temperature a lot easier. And I imagine more even cooking. I don't know. Norwegian friends, do pipe in and let me know. Do you have a favorite krumkake recipe? So I whisked that up beautifully. Now we're gonna add our cardamom. And I'm gonna add a little splash of vanilla. Just a little. Lastly, we're gonna add our flour and milk. I'm using whole milk. So this recipe is a pretty big one. This is supposed to make about 50 cookies. So I'm gonna add my milk gradually so I can avoid lumpage. All right, so that's the last of the milk. Oh, it smells so good. That cardamom is amazing. So we're just gonna whisk this until it's smooth, and I'm gonna try to work out any lumps. I do have a few, which I was hoping to avoid, but I think we'll be all right. Alrighty, so that's it for our batter. Very simple. Make sure I've got everything whisked in. And now we're ready to cook. So I've had my cookie maker preheating here on medium heat, and I've turned it intermittently to make sure that both sides of the griddle get warmed up. And I've been told, you know, it's ready when you take a bit of water and you splash it on it and it sizzles. Sounds like it's ready. So we're gonna open it up, and these cook really quickly. So we take just a teaspoon of filling, batter, put it right in the middle. I'm going to err on the side of making it smaller rather than larger. Close it, give it a little squeeze, and then just 10 seconds or so before flipping it over. That's probably at least 10 seconds. So we'll flip it over, and all these cookers are going to be different depending on whether you're using a model like mine or an electric one. And also, this is the first one. And just like waffles and pancakes, the first one often doesn't turn out well. And I forgot to oil it. We'll see how well my seasoning went. I've got a little bit of oil on a brush here, but I forgot to oil it. All right, let's see. Yo! It turned out. Okay, 1 teaspoon is too small. I need 2 teaspoons. So quickly, that's ready. Look, it's a little bit over browned. I'm gonna take an offset spatula, pick it up. Oh wow, look how thin it is. Oh my gosh, this is too hot. Okay, this is getting too hot. Okay. Wow, that's too brown. That's too light. So let's turn down the heat a bit. It didn't stick too badly, and let's add a little bit of oil to that. Okay. So I think maybe 1 tablespoon is a better amount than 1 teaspoon. All right, so let's try that. Right to the middle of an oiled griddle. Working quickly. Close it. The traditional shape of these cookies are a cone shape, and I've seen wooden dowels, but I made mine out of some foil and I used an oyster shucker. I'm proud of myself. All right, I'm gonna turn that over, get it on this side. And what we're gonna do is unstick it and then quickly roll it around this mold to get that cone shape. Wow, let me take a peek. Oh my gosh, this is way too hot. I see why people get electric ones. We gotta shape these quickly because these will set up. Oh my gosh, this is quite the endeavor. Okay. And then you put it seam side down. Oh, I shouldn't have touched it. Okay, it's quite the little balance of all things here. I'm using these heat-proof gloves. I know they look dirty, but I wash them regularly, but they are singed. But I love these things. They give you a lot of dexterity. All right, I'm gonna turn this over because this side has been heated. And this is quite the dance. The krumkake making. Okay, 1 tablespoon. Close. I'm gonna slide this cookie off. Beautiful. Turn this over. Heat the other side, and then we're gonna check on it and then roll. Okay, that's better. Now we're gonna take this off here very quickly, peel it, and roll it. Wow, you have to work so fast to get that cone shape. Then let that sit like that. Okay, I'm kind of working this out. Boy, this is fast work. All right, I think I got it now. All right, lovelies, I'm going to become a little krumkake elf and make a bunch of these, and I will come back and we will give these beautiful cookies a taste. All right, my lovelies, I am back with my finished cookies, and I have to say it makes a lot. I have 46 cookies or so, but once you get into the rhythm of things and figure out the right temperature for your maker, it actually is very, very quick. I end up doing 5 seconds on one side, 10 seconds on the other, flip, and then take out and roll. So it actually goes pretty quickly, and I've got a bunch of cookies, and as you can tell from the color here, it took me a little while to find the correct temperature. You want the cookies to cook up enough so they get crispy, but I don't think you want them to be overly browned like my first attempt, which was way too small and way too hot as far as my pan. This is my first time making them though, so once you figure it out, maybe it won't be such an issue. As you can see, this was my first attempt, very dark, burnt, and light on the outside. This was another very overcooked one, but I started getting better, and I think this is the ideal color. The cone is nice and crispy. It has some caramelization on it, but not too pale. These ones are a little bit lighter, and I think these may be a little less crisp. Here is another one I think that turned out nicely. And don't they look beautiful? I love how the embossing turns out on the pancake. So beautiful. So from my understanding, there are a few different ways to eat these. You can eat them plain, you can dust them with powdered sugar, you can fill them with whipped cream or any other kind of filling, fruit, but I'm just going to have them plain. This is my first taste of a krumkake. Alrighty, here we go. Itadakimasu. Did you hear that? They are crisp but crumbly, sweet, slightly eggy. The flavor reminds me a lot of a fortune cookie. A lot. Mmm. The texture is a little bit different. They're not as hard and crunchy and shard-like. These are a little bit softer. They are a cross, in my opinion, of a fortune cookie and a crepe in terms of both texture and flavor. The sweetness is about the same as a fortune cookie. Sweeter than a crepe. Delicious. Delicate, yet substantial. Fragile, but delicious. I love the combination of cardamom and vanilla. I think I could have put more cardamom. I put about a half a teaspoon because I ground it fresh. So I would go ahead and say add the entire amount of cardamom, especially if you like that flavor. But if you don't, vanilla is delicious as well. These are so delicious. Oh, they also remind me of French tuile cookies. The buttery flavor reminds me of those, but also the delicate kind of crunch of them. But they are so beautiful. They are just begging to be filled with something, but I think they're absolutely lovely, just plain. And just for kicks, let's go ahead and try a more toasted version. and see what that's like. Here we go. Mmm, that's good as well. This tastes more like an ice cream cone in my opinion. The texture is still more delicate and light, not as hard and stiff as an ice cream cone, but more of a nutty flavor. Delicious. I think these would be fantastic with ice cream in them. But because they are thinner and more delicate, I don't think it could support a scoop of ice cream for very long because they're just so thin and delicate. And plus there's a big hole in the bottom of this one, but even the ones that are tighter that I made, their ice cream would still drip through. So beautiful. I love the embossed pattern on that. It's so lovely. After making a batch of these, if you want to make them in a cone shape, a tool like this is pretty essential. I just used an oyster shucker that I had in my Gadget drawer and made a cone out of some paper and then wrapped it in foil so that it would be a little bit more substantial. And it worked out famously, worked out beautifully. You can also just make these into flat circles as well. Another important tip is to place your freshly cooked cookies onto a rack so that the steam can escape. Just like when you are cooking a pizza, if you want the crust to remain crisp, you have to let the steam out, otherwise it will get soggy. So same concept applies here. Place them on a rack so that they can escape, and then your cookies will stay and become crispy. That's another thing. Initially, when you cook the cookies, they're a little bit soft and pliable. But as the cookies cool, the sugars kind of harden and they become much crisper, while initially they're very kind of soft and pliant. Last tip, if you choose to make a cone shape, make sure you roll them immediately. They begin to stiffen up as they cool off. So roll immediately, be prepared with everything, have enough space, have your racks ready, and you'll get these beautiful, lovely, delicious Norwegian Christmas cookies. All right, my lovelies, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that one. I hope you learned something. Please share this video with your friends. Follow me on social media, like this video, subscribe, and I shall see you in the next one. Toodaloo, take care, bye! Oh, I need a bigger one. So silly. I'm gonna eat these all. Get them away from me.